Welcome everybody to day one of Knowledge Days 2021, Virtual Knowledge Days 2021. We're all hopeful that 2022 will be an in-person Knowledge Days, and maybe even before 2022, eLuna will have in-person events very soon. So this is the first day, session 2. We already had the first session of handling related records this morning. And let's just jump right in. We had enough of a introduction there. So this is the topics we're going to cover today. Time permitting, this is the order that we want to cover them and what we will cover. First, we're going to link to an article which is in one specific issue of a journal. That's often called an analytic article. We have a journal. Each journal issue has several articles, and the library catalogs one of the articles so that a user in Discovery can get right to that article, and then they link it to the related record, which is the journal. Then we're going to talk about a short story, which is in 3 different sources, 3 different host items. And that's the one bibliographic record with multiple 773 host entry item fields. Then we're going to talk about a journal which changes its name. So we have 2 records, one for the old name, one for the new name, and how the user sees that this has changed when they're in there. And is my one person just sent in that my voice is faint? Is that faint for everybody or just for the person who sent it in?
It's sounding better to me now. It sounds like you maybe just adjusted the mic closer, and that sounds better.
Okay, great. So now I got it really close to me. Okay. And then using the 774 field for a bound together. So let's jump right in. Ray already sent to you the links of where you can find all the information, so I'm not going to do that. Also, we have PowerPoints for each one. I'm just going to very briefly show the PowerPoints, and all of what we'll do will actually be in Alma and in Primo. Okay, so we're starting off with this one, linking an article to one specific issue of a journal. And let's go take a look first at the journal. So we have a journal called the Journal of Library Science in China. And by the way, I'm in a regular standard issue of Alma, nothing special here. And let's see. I'm in the regular May release, just like you all have, just so you don't think I have a special version with other developments. Regular standard May 2021 release. And then we've got here the Journal of Library Science in China. And this journal has 1 holdings record and 6 items. And each item has its own enumeration A, which is the volume, enumeration B, which is the issue, enumeration C, which is the part, chronology I, which is the year. And let's go take a look at those items. And here's the 6 items. Let that spin around a bit. There we go. So we got volume 2, volume 3, and then we got the parts. When we say volume and we say year and we say part, it's more than just whatever's displaying in the description. Those are coming from the enumerations. And when we use a 773 field to link to a specific issue, we link according to the enumeration A, which is the volume, the enumeration B, which is the issue, the enumeration C, which is the part. Usually there aren't parts. Usually there's just a volume and an issue. Sometimes there's also a part, but typically not. And then we've got the chronology I, which is the year. So this is the chronology I year, and this is the enumeration C. And in our specific example, the article that we want to link to is in volume 3, issue 2, part 2, 2013. And I'm going to open up a Word document because along the way, we're going to write some stuff down and we want to be able to follow what we got. So we have an article in this one here. Now, those of you who have attended my sessions in the past know that spelling is not my strong point, so I apologize in advance, but that's good enough. And let me make all of this bigger so everyone can see. So we want to link now to the article which is in that issue. And we're going to do that with a 773 field. And let's go take a look at the actual article. So the article is, let's see if I still got it in here, urban or rural. There we go. So there's an article called Libraries in Urban China. And libraries in urban China, let's take a look here. Well, I've got several articles. Let me make sure I'm taking the exact article that I've been playing around with here. Because I've got all kinds of different examples. Ponderation over developing rural libraries in China. Let's take that one. Ponderation. There we are. Okay. The one we've got on the screen is working the same way, but we'll take a look at this one because that's the one in the PowerPoint. So how are we linking now to that journal? We've got a field here, a 773. The indicators is not important here for functionality, but let's take a look here at what we've got. So we're linking to this via this 773 field. And what do we have here? The T is the title. The W is the identifier, which can be the control number from the 035, or it can be the MMSID. It's possible also to use a Z for an ISBN or an X for an ISSN. And then we've got the subfield G. This is the volume. This is the issue. Notice they have a prefix. This is the part. And this is the year. So we have here what we saw very brief, just a few moments ago, that we have enumeration A, enumeration B, enumeration C, and chronology I. So we're linking directly to those. This is the title, which is for display purposes, has no actual functionality. Although it's not only display, it's also retrieving because the subfield T is indexed in the title. When you search for title, it includes 773T. Now, two things. If we go to the search indexes, we're going to start here. And what I just mentioned now, if we go, this is a Mark 21. By the way, there's also examples with Unimark, but this audience is primarily North America. Oh, we have quite a bit of European. So we've also got examples for Unimark. And here, if we go to the Mark 21 bibliographic all titles search, just as an example, and we get the 773. So here's the 773, and you can see that the 773 subfield T is indexed like we just said in the title. Also, I'd like to point out that if we go to www.loc.gov/mark bibliographic, and we go look at the 773 field, what we got here is not an invention of Ex Libris. Ex Libris didn't come out and say, hey, let's have them put the title in the T and the ISBN in the Z. These fields are all standard from Library of Congress, even the G, which is the related parts. So all of this will be reflected in Alma. So, review. This is now an article called Ponderation over Developing Rural Libraries in China. It's in the Journal of Library Science in China, which has this control number, which has this enumeration A, this enumeration B, excuse me, and this enumeration C, etc. And it's pointing, excuse me, to this one here. Let me take a little beverage here. It's pointing to this one. And if we go to the items, it means the article is in the specific volume, issue, and part that we pointed to. Let's see how it works for the end user. And let's also see how it works for the Alma user. Now, I'm using a 773 right now, and we'll edit it. And in the metadata editor, we can also see, I see from two questions that came in, I want to point out for a moment. This is a physical journal article. It's not linking to an electronic journal. It's a physical journal article. Perhaps I should have pointed that out before. It's not an electronic. There's no electronic linking here. There's no link resolver being used. It's just notifying the patron that this is an article which is in a journal. I have another example later on, which does point to an electronic. This is pointing to a physical journal. And here within the view related data, we can view the related bibliographic records. So this is going to now go to the 773, go to the subfield W, and bring that record. And notice the relation is contains, because from the journal, it contains this article. And if I was in the journal now, I'm going now from the journal, I'm going to view related records. And then it's going to say is part of. I see another question came in. You do not have to use all of the subfield G. You have to use either a subfield W, a subfield Z, or a subfield X, because you need to link to the bibliographic record. You don't have to go detailed to the items. In fact, the next example, we're only going to do the bibliographic record because it's going to be a collection of short stories. You don't have to use subfield G at all. And if you do use subfield G, you can use just the volume if you want. So here now, this is the journal on the right. And if I, in the journal, say view related data, view related bibliographic records, now it's going to say is part of. Because now the article is part of that journal issue. And you can see here it's part of. There's three other articles, which you saw that we found also before. So I'm going to write here so we can compare for later that when using the 773, we have is part of, and we have contains. Okay, sorry, I'm justifying to the left. Okay, so now let's see how it works for the end user. End user pops into Primo, and he's going to search, or she is going to search for this ponderation over developing rural libraries. So I'm an end user now. I like to log in, although it's not really necessary, but it's preferred. Okay, so we have ponderation over rural, and we have the word China. Okay. Now let's see what's going to happen here. There we go. And I'm clicking the title. And I see that there's availability. It is available. It's in the Journal of Library Science in China, which is the related title. And here, I, as the end user, see that this is part of the Journal of Library Science in China, number 3, issue 2, part 2, year 2013. It's in the general location, and it's at call number 022.613YLK. So now I can go to the shelf. I can go to the main library general location to 022.613YLK and go take issue 3, volume 3, issue 2, part 2, and find this article. So that's.
Well, we had a request to zoom in a little bit if you have the ability to do that.
Zoom in on the screen, you mean?
Yeah, if you can maybe enlarge the browser.
Okay. So here I see that that's the related title. And I see that if I click there, I also get it right away here. And I can go to the shelf and get it. So it's showing the valuability of the item, which is of the related record from the subfield G. Okay, that's 15 minutes, so that's right on time if I cover all the topics. Let's just take a quick look at the chat and see if there's anything urgent. Okay, someone says they can see it now. Thank you, and sorry that was small. Someone asked, so this is basically to create our own index of articles of a physical journal. Yes, you could call it, I'm going to put that out here so people can see. You could call, oh, I didn't want to get anyone's name. Sorry about that. We do not usually put out people's names, so you can send anything you want. These are articles. It's not an index of ex libris. This is something that the library decides that they know. Let's say I have a department of library and information science in my university, and I want to make sure that important articles are known to the end users. So I might catalog an article and then make it available to the end users, just like we saw here. Yes, now someone states here, and that's a great lead-in to the next one. Someone states there are other use cases too. It doesn't have to be articles. Correct. And let's see a use case where it's not an article. I'm just going to put this back to regular size, and I'll make it big in a moment. So the next one to show, and that's the great lead-in, is one bibliographic record with multiple 773 host item entry fields. Before I even get into the PowerPoint, I'll explain. We have a short story. In this case, it's called The Scribe by an author, Agnon. If any of you have ever read Agnon, I'm sure you'll appreciate that this is a really nice story. Anyone out there ever read Agnon? Shmuel Yosef Agnon? You can just send in, yes, I've read him if you have. Very highly recommended. So anyway, he has a story called The Scribe, and it happens to be in 3 different sources. It's in it's in a collection of essays, a collection of short stories, and it's in a journal. So it's in a book called A Book That Was Lost in Other Stories. It's in a book called 21 Stories, and then it's in a journal called the Jewish Quarterly. And let's take a look at this. So we have The Scribe, back into Alma, title. What am I looking here for? The Scribe. Okay, it's also called The Legend of the Scribe. And there we are. So here now, in our previous example, we had 1773 field because we were pointing to library science in China, to one journal. This is a story, The Scribe, also known as The Legend of the Scribe, which happens to be in fact, I'm going to take all 3 of these. And let's put it in our Word document. Now we're on a new topic. So it happens to be, and I'll make this larger as well. It happens to be, let's do this. Sorry about that. Cancel. Control V, Control T. Great. Then, okay. So it's in this one, which happens to be ISBN this. Let's go see that ISBN this. ISBN, boom. Okay, so it's in this physical item book, which is a collection of stories, a book that was lost in other stories. Then it's also in this ISBN, And this one is also physical, 21 stories. And then it's also in this ISSN, volume 23. So here we'll go by ISSN. And this one has both physical and electronic. And I'm linking to the ISSN, so it's linking to both of them. Now, somebody says, wouldn't the 505 do the same thing to index the short story? Yes, in a way it will, but it won't have the same functionality. The 505, for those of you who are not, I don't know what the word would be, specialists in every mark field. If someone will wake you up at 2 a.m. and say, what is the 505 field? How many people would know? I would say probably about 50% of the participants. On a 2-minute notice in the middle of the night, you wake them up and say, what is the 505 field? They could probably tell you. So the 505 field is a contents note. So if I were to go, for example, to one of these sections of short stories, if it's cataloged well, I'll already have 2 seconds would do. Yes, so someone would know in 2 seconds. Okay, so here we've got the contents note. Now this contents note is good for indexing because the 505 is also indexed. So here we should have the scribe. Yes, we do. It's called the tale of the scribe. The fable of the goat, that's another good one. So the tale of the scribe, you'd get it with the 505T for the indexing, but you wouldn't have the ability to click and go right to the source. You're already in the source here. And for example, here you wouldn't find it via the ISBN. If you let's see, the whole linking in Discovery is what you'd be missing if you only had the 505T. So what do we have here? Back to our tale of the scribe. I see people are answering because they're talking about if they knew what the 505 was, etc. But nobody answered that they ever read Unknown before. Oh, someone did. It's in his father's bookshelf even. Great. Okay, so now let's see inside Alma before we go to Primo. Let's see what's happening here. Let me close some of these so I don't have so many open. Actually, I'll leave them because I'm going to be using them later. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to get that in full mode. Okay, so here I'm in the short story now. I'm not in the article. I'm in the short story. That includes the scribe. So here, if we say view related data, view related bibliographic records, okay, so we see here that the scribe is part of, if someone else says he read it and knows he got the Nobel Prize. So it's part of, because we're using the 773 like we had before, by Agnon Shmuel Yosef. So here, if we edit this one, and again we do it, so now here, I'm going to make this bigger. I'm doing Control Plus. I can't do Control Plus in the metadata editor. So here, oh, there we go. The Control Plus took a bit. So that's bigger. I hope that's big enough. Oh, it's getting even bigger. Okay, so here, whoa, now it's getting real big. Whoa. When I did the Control Plus, it took a little while. Let me do 2 Control minuses. Whoa, hold on. Sorry about that. Whoa. Each control plus took a couple of seconds. Holy cow. All right, let's do a couple more control minuses. There we go. We're coming back into view. Another control minus or so. Control minus, control minus. Okay. There we go. All right, that should suffice. It's still adjusting, and then we're just going to leave it. Okay. So here, from the article now, we view related bibliographic records. I'm in the article that's pointing to 3 host records. And it gives the 3 host records, and it's got the relation contains. Because each of these other sources, they're called the host item, they contain the article that we came from. So we have the 773 is part of, and the host item contains. And again, if we go to here and we write legend of the scribe, boom. And I'll make this a little larger. And now I say, it says it's available at this location. And if I go there, let's see what we got. Okay, so I've got 3 related titles from my 3 773 fields. And somebody asks, where are the articles coming from? I'm going to repeat what we stated before. These are articles cataloged by the library. It's not part of an index. This here is an article. What I'm looking at now on the screen, the scribe, the legend of the scribe, this was cataloged by a librarian in the institution. It's not like a CDI index. It's not coming from a knowledge base. It's an article that the institution catalogs and uses a 773. You can also use a 774. I'll talk about the difference in a moment, which is very minimal, if at all. And they put in, the institution puts in this link. Typically, it's for physical things, but in our case here, we've also got for electronic. And that brings me to here. Here, I can click right here, the related title. This one has the physical and the electronic, if you recall. And I've got all of the information here. And I can click right here and go there. That's what I wouldn't have if I had only the 505 field. So that's bringing me now right to the journal. And then I can go to this journal however I want. I can go get the online one, or I can go to the physical one and see where it is on the shelf, available online. So that's the use of a 773 to point to a journal that an article or a short story in this case is cataloged from. Now, 2 other points. If somebody does catalogs a 773, a 774, what we'll soon see is a 780 and a 785, any of the related record links, the link gets built when a job in the evening, I'm going to admin monitor jobs, when a job in the evening runs, which is called build MMS record relations. I'm going to the schedule tab of the monitor jobs tab. And here, if I filter by repository, then one of the jobs we see is the MMS build record relations, and it runs every day at 11 p.m. And this job is what builds the actual relation. So if you go home now, or you go to your office, or you're already at your office and at your computer. If you decide to catalog something and test out what you're seeing here, the relation only gets built when this job runs. It's not on save. That's one issue. Number two, I'm going to show you a page here which has a lot of information about related records, and I'm going to send it to everybody in the chat. And at the very beginning of Alma, we tried to differentiate between the 773s and the 774s, but it was to no avail. In other words, it didn't work. There were libraries who said, we're going to use the 774 for bound with, and we're going to use the 773 for linking the articles to the source. And other ones said, no, 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 you should use the 774 for the articles and 773 for the bound with. So as you see here, I've got an example of one of each. One uses the 774. We're going to look at the bound together right now. One uses the 773, one uses the 774. They both say is part of, which is true for two records bound together. And they both function very similarly. Just out of curiosity, if we come here, this is called 773 host item entry. All of the subfields are the same as well. And if I say here 774, it's a constituent unit entry. So it does have something slightly different. Okay, before I get into the bound withs, I see it's 1732 local time, very engaged crowd I see, writing a lot. So let me just see if there's anything urgent here. Can you save such related records not as part of job? You can save the records with a 773, 774, 7, whatever you'd like. But there's no advantage of the record until the job runs. Until the MMS build record relations job runs, there'll be no functionality to the 773, 774. Someone says, will you do a presentation on the 776 in the future? It never works for me. Oh, that's interesting. The 776 is not working for you. Do I have something here on the 776? No, I don't. That's interesting. It's not working for you. We weren't planning on doing one on the 776. I'm going to take note of your name here. I'm not going to put it out in the public domain. And interesting, it doesn't work. Okay, 776. Okay, I've got you down. Okay, what else do we got? If an item gets withdrawn, does it drop out of the related items display? Yes. You probably have, by the way, every institution has a lot of records that have 773, 774, 776s even, because if you go, for example, to lean in woman work will to lead. Okay, because if you go into WorldCat, for example, in copy records, there's a very good chance that it has one of these 77 something related records fields. Here's a 776. Great. Now, 776, I'm just going to bring it up even though it wasn't on the original itinerary because our illustrious colleague brought it up. It links between versions. For example, this one is pointing to the print version. And the print version has ISBN this. Let me see if I have this ISBN. So if I go now to ISBN, this, I do have it. I've got the physical and I've got the electronic. This is a nice example I stumbled upon. I didn't stumble upon it. I knew it was there from the past. So if I open up this electronic one just to look at the fields, it's pointing with a 776 to this ISBN, this control number. And I think someone asked if you can have multiples. And yes, you can have multiples, and even I have multiples. And it's usually, if you're copying these from another source, they'll have multiples. So this is pointing to this ISBN and back. And this one here has that ISBN right here. It doesn't have a 776. It's enough that the other one does. And let's see something just for the fun here. If I go back to this Lean In Women Work Will to Lead, and I display this in Discovery, those of you who are on Primo V have that display in Discovery. Those of you who are not in Primo V will not have it. And I come here, and here we go. So I've got the availability, etc., because I'm looking at the electronic. And I've also got this, in my case, the 776 is working. Someone pointed out it's not working. So in my case, it is working, and it states related titles available in another form, print version. And then if I say, oh, I'm in the electronic, I want the print one. I always prefer the print, by the way. It's old-fashioned, I know, but I like the print. So then I can link directly to the print one. One copy, one available, 0 requests, etc. So that's the 776. That was kind of a detour, not part of our original plan, just brought up because it was brought up by the crowd. Okay, I see a lot of links. Let's pop into the bound widths before we run out of time. Okay, so the bound widths. The bound widths are a situation typically for older records and religious records. For example, a binder maybe in the late 1800s was printing 2 different works, and in order to save time and money, printed them or bound them together. We might have the book of Psalms and a book of hymns and the New Testament. And he might bind them all in one work. Or even the history of horses and Paris for travelers. They don't necessarily have to do anything together as far as the topic is concerned, though usually they did. But even today, in modern times, religious books are often still bound together. You might get the book of Psalms together with the book of Proverbs, and maybe prayers for special occasions, and they're all together. Okay, so let's do one now with a 774, a bound width. And let me just close this one, and let me close this one, and let's go into the bound widths on the 774s. Okay, bound together titles using a 774. So what do we have here? We've got 3 different titles. They're in German. We got the German New Testament. We got Osternacht und Altes Testament, and Psalter und Harf, which I believe is Psalms and Hymns, but don't quote me on that. Okay, so what are the steps that we're going to do here? 3 different titles, each with its own MMS ID, its own control number. They're all cataloged separately, but they're bound in one item. That means if someone loans this one, someone else cannot loan this and cannot loan this because there's one item and it's already on loan. Okay, and these are our 3 items, 3 bibliographic records. We're going to go look at them in Alma, but let's first talk about what are our steps to bind them together. Now I have here several steps. Some of them have no functional significance. They're merely to comply with the modern library science rules. So first we have to decide what is the master title, because only one of these three titles, in fact, I'm going to put them in words so we don't have to keep flipping around here. We'll decide one of these will be the master title, and that one will have a link to the other two titles, and it will have a holdings record and an item. The other titles will not have a holdings record and therefore cannot have an item. And they won't even have 774s linking back. There'll be one record linking to the other two, and they're all together. So let's first of all put this into Microsoft Word. And I'll make a little line here. Okay, so these are our three titles. The master title. Let's go now talk about the master title. Or the main title. The main title. Okay. So this is the title which is going to get the holdings record, the item, and the 774 fields. And we've decided that our main title will be Das Neue Testament Deutsch, the New Testament in Dutch. So this one will have the 774 fields and also has no functionality. We can make a 501 bound with note, just to be official. So let's take a look. Here we are. What happened here? Okay, let me get rid of all that. All right. There we are. Really active crowd. Okay, someone said you don't use a host bibliographic record. You could call what I've been calling the main title a host. But I don't make a fictitious record just to bind them all together, if that's what you mean. So this is the one that's got the 501 and it's got the 774s pointing to the others. It's not a fake record, and I'm not making a fake record. I know from migrations that a lot of other systems have had these fake fictitious records, which are just for the purpose of getting things together. I think all of 300, way back, 300, would do that. In any case, even all of 500 didn't. Even. All right, so here it's pointing to the other two records. I've got the 501 saying that it's bound with those two other ones. This one has a real holdings record. Let's go back. And here, if I say physical, I see it's got a holdings record. And note that here under related record, it doesn't have anything for the related record because this is a real holdings record. However, and we're going to look at that holdings record. If I go to Psalter und Harf, so this one here, if I look, it has a holdings record, but it's not its own holdings record. It's bringing the holdings record from the related record, from the Das Neue Testament Deutsch. So that's why it has here a check mark in the related record part. This one here, you can see, does not have it. It has its own real holdings record. This one doesn't. It's just bringing the holdings record of the related record. Let's go look at the edit record here. And let's let that open. Here we go, Das Neue Testament. I'm going to close the other one we have so we can go more in the full screen. Close that. I'll make my navigation pane on the left a little smaller. Those of you who attended the new metadata editor sessions we did know that I can close this right here and I can pin it closed. Okay, so now I got a lot of room. close. Okay. So now I've got all of this. Okay, boom. So here, let's see what's going to happen if we view related records here. So it's bringing both of them and it's saying is part of. Now, you may recall part of also appeared with the 773 because we're not going to call it constituent item entry because it goes also into Primo, we're going to see in a minute, and an end user wouldn't know what a constituent item entry is. Here, and now I'll also point out what someone pointed out. Thank you for bringing that up. Someone says, I wouldn't find ones which don't have its own holdings records as physical titles. Yes and no. I wouldn't find it. I don't find the Psalter and Harf. I found the Neue Testament. So correct, I don't find Psalter and Harf, but I do find the one that is the main title of it, the one that has the 774s, because as we pointed out before, and as we saw in the documentation, the 774 subfield T is the title. Someone asked, why does it say is part of and not bound with? Because not everyone uses this for bound with. Some people are adamant about using the 774 the way I showed the 773. There's no uniformity in how these are used. Like I said, at the very beginning, we tried to come out with this is the best practice. Use a 773 for this, use a 774 for this. Didn't happen. Because people want to keep working the way they've been working, and that's respectable too. So now if we come to Primo on this, I'm an end user, because we have to keep in mind here, by the way, this is all not just a fun academic exercise, just for the sake of seeing how Alma is going to work, but we want the end user to get to the information. That's the ultimate goal here, which we can't forget about. So here, I found it. I see it's available. I click that. And then in the get it, I see main library. The related title is available in the general location at 225.7. And I can go to the shelf and get it now. And I see that it's part of this one here. Now, just for the fun, I'm going to go into this Das Neue Testament, etc. Physical items, title, Das, N-E-U, I forgot how to spell Neu. Let's just say Testament. We'll see how many records we have with Das Testament, how many physical items we got. Okay, I'm going to take this barcode. Oh, I got it right here. And I'm going to loan this. Fulfillment, managed patron services. We'll loan to our colleague Alicia Hen. Okay, I might have to override. I think she's got fines and all kinds of blocks. Nope, fine. Okay, now if I do the same thing again, I loaned on face value. I know I loaned this Neue Testament. I loaned the item that has all three of them. So here now, if I come look at this, let's do the search again. And now it says not available because I just loaned it a moment ago. That's the whole point, that there's one item with all three works. So if I want to read Psalter and Harf, and somebody has loaned or somebody is using Das Neue Testament Deutsch, I can't read Psalter and Harf because they're all together. Now, somebody asked, could I have used the 773 instead of the 774? Yes, I could. Oh, and you say, can I use the 773 in each of the other records? Yes, I could have. I could have, instead of taking what I called my main title and pointing to the others, I could have in each of the others pointed to the main one. But for organizational purposes, it's easier to do it in one spot. How does Alma know, someone asks, how does Alma know whether to say is part of or contains when you click the view related data? That's in a table that's maintained by Ex Libris, so that there's some kind of uniformity there. Somebody states, is the 501 library unique? Does this mean that each copy of the New Testament Deutsch is bound with the other titles? Yes, in my case here, there's one copy, and they're all bound together. Okay, I think I'm going to move on because we've got 10 minutes, and I do want to show the journal, which gets changed. I'm just seeing if there's anything that would be useful to share with everybody. Somebody says, let me see what somebody says. I'm going to copy and make sure I don't take the name this time by accident. So somebody says, we made the choice. Oops, sorry, I got this here. Whoa, okay. We made the choice to make the first item in the binding the main record, and the barcode is associated only with the main bib record. Okay, look, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish this. What we have in these presentations is what we think as Ex Libris is the best practice. Okay, let's go on now. We got 8 minutes. We got a situation now where a journal changes its name. So let's pop in to a journal continued as a different name using the 780 and the 785. Whoa, that sounds like an exciting topic. So now let's get rid of this one here. Okay, so what do we have here? We got a journal. It's called the Vancouver Medical Association Bulletin. It changed its name to the British Columbia Medical Journal. So I'm not just going to change a bibliographic record. I'm going to make a new record for the new title. I may have all kinds of holdings, inventory, related to the previous one. And I'm going to leave them there and then make a new record and link them together. And here, this is the explanation. The British Columbia Medical Journal was originally known as the Vancouver Medical Association. So now it's going to be preceded by, the one that it's called now will be preceded by the previous one. And the one that it's called now is the succeeding entry. It succeeds the preceded one. So the 785 is the succeeding entry. The 780 is the preceding entry. And again, these are not inventions of Ex Libris, though it would be interesting if we were to invent our own mark. But we won't do that. Come up with a new mark, but we're not going to do that. So this is the 780 preceding entry. Now notice again, it's the same subfields. The record control number is the W, the ISSN is the X, the ISBN is the Z, the G is the related parts. All of these related record fields have the same subfields. It's always dangerous to say all. Let's say most, if not all, have the same subfields. Okay. So what do we do here? We're going to catalog. Let's open both of these up right now. We'll put them next to each other instead of this nice diagram, which is a nice diagram. Maybe I'll even point this out first. So my 785 here on the left is pointing to the ISSN on the right. My ISSN on the right is pointing to the ISSN on the left. That's how I'm making the connection between them. And I could have used the subfield W instead, and the subfield W could point to the control number on the 035. It can also point to the MMS ID, by the way. So let's go take a look. So I'm back in Alma. I'm all titles. And let's go title, Vancouver Medical. And I can get both of these in one shot into the metadata editor by doing push selected to metadata editor. In the olden days, before we had this wonderful new metadata editor, I would have needed to click edit and then do another search and click edit again, but no longer. So now let me make this a little, just a tad smaller so I can navigate. And let's open this up and pin it. Okay, so now it's pinned open. Okay, so we've got British Columbia Medical Journal. And now I'll focus on the left pane. Pane being P-A-N-E, of course, and not pain like something that hurts. So now I'm going to focus on the left pane, and I'm going to open up the other related record. Okay. So this one here is the Bulletin of the Vancouver Medical Association. It points to the British Columbia Medical Journal, which is this ISSN, and the link is made because that ISSN is right here in the other record. Then we've got here, this is pointing to the Bulletin of the Vancouver Medical Association, 336. If I view the related bibliographic records, I'll see that one is the succeeding and one is the preceding. So the British Columbia Medical Journal, when I do view related, it says it succeeds. Let's go see for the end user because we have 2.5 minutes left. Now let's say the end user doesn't know that the Vancouver Medical Association Bulletin is now called something else. So he or she will come in and search for it. And Vancouver Medical Association, he sees it here. He goes to check for the available services. And he sees the later title. Now here, instead of saying preceding and succeeding, we called it previous and later. So here, if we go to the British Columbia Medical Journal, I've got a link directly there that the later title is the British Columbia Medical Journal. I go there and I get there. And by the way, this one is only available online. Someone asked about linking at the very beginning, about linking not to physical, but to electronic. So I get directly here and I can go and access this journal. So here it's called the earlier title. When we're in the Bulletin of Vancouver Medical Association, it said previous title, excuse me. What did it say? This is earlier title. I guess my memory's going. And this one said later title. So we have earlier title and later title with a link going directly to them. And when we click that link, we automatically get to the record and can access it. Okay, 17:59 local time. Someone says, well, what if the library doesn't have the title? Like I said, it'll say that that's the later title, but there'll be no access to it because you don't have it. And like I said at the beginning, you probably have several cases where you have 7.7 something and 7.8 something fields, and you don't have the related one because if you're copy cataloging from Library of Congress, WorldCat, etc., you're probably getting these for the 776s for sure. Okay, I apologize that we're out of time. Thanks, everybody. I'm very glad that there was a very active crowd, very interested, all the time asking questions and even answering them. And we hope to see you in the rest of our Knowledge Day sessions in general and or all of our sessions in general, and the Knowledge Day sessions in particular. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.
Thanks, everybody. And just a reminder, you'll be able to find the recording in the link I just placed in the chat. We look forward to seeing you at other webinars. Have a great day.